Alrighty, folks, it is tax season. Lots of you have hopefully filed your taxes because technically they were due yesterday, or you filed an extension. But I want to have a conversation with Matt, the mortgage guy, really about two things. One, small business owners, maybe someone who have historically been aggressive leveragers of the tax code. What does that mean for their possibility of getting or not getting a conventional mortgage? We can also talk about first-time homebuyers who might be celebrating a tax refund. What does that mean for the home buying season, spring selling season? So Matt, the mortgage guy, I know you get a lot of phone calls from folks who maybe are thinking about their taxes, doing some tax planning. What is the general question from small business owners? What do you get?
Yeah, so being tax season, more of these conversations in the rest of the year, but really these conversations happen all year long. And if you don't know, you don't know. So you should be talking to a mortgage broker, someone you trust, about how you file your taxes, because it's a lever that, generally speaking, most people have the ability to pull up or down. And what I mean by that is you're not cheating, but you've got legitimate tax write-offs that I had two of these conversations on Monday, and it's like, hey, listen, I don't mind sending a little bit extra money and not claiming all the write-offs that I have if showing 10,000 more in income or 20,000 more in income is going to help me qualify, because this is the year I'm buying a house. And so, to put that in context, I'm not talking about W-2 wage earners. You got a salary and you work for the state. That's easy income to look at. And I make $8,400 a month as a manager for the state. That's what the lender's going to use. If you're self-employed, like it or not, don't kill the messenger, I don't make the rules. The lender is going to use, for example's sake, your Schedule C 1099 employee, and the top line, your net income, you had $322,000 in receipts. Well, you rented an office, you had travel expenses, you've got equipment, all of these deductions, and then your net income is $84,000 for the year. That $84,000 net is what lenders use. And oh, by the way, since self-employment income is not as easy for the lender to see into the future on, $8,400 a month from the state is next month and the month after. What the lender will do, and this is a simplified version, but it'll give people an idea, is they'll look at what you filed on your 2023 taxes and your 2024 taxes, and they'll take an average. Yeah. So that net income, bottom line, is $60,000 in 23. It's $84,000 in 24. Some might think, well, I'm making $7,000 a month because it's $84,000. Well, to project forward, the lender's going to say, let's look back 2 years and let's take an average. Take 60 plus 84. We're going to take that and divide it by 24. And so that's going to be your average and what they're going to use. And of course, there's S-Corp filings. Some people are getting a K-1. There's all kinds of different self-employment income. The two things you should know: one, they're going off your net. Just because you did $2 million in revenue doesn't mean $2 million a year is what you quote unquote make. And you need to, more than ever, talk to a mortgage broker, get yourself pre-approved, have them tell you, regardless of like, oh, no, I really make this, I do like, that's all that stuff is great. The story is great. What the lender is going to use, you want to know that number. And of course, like the conversations I had this week, this guy was like, listen, my wife's self-employment income was $38,000. She had some expenses. We could write it down to $12,000. He's already kind of done all the math himself. Mm-hmm. I will, forego some of my write-offs and show a higher income number if it means I qualify for what we're looking to buy this year.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because, again, I talk to more and more small business owners, more and more solopreneurs. Frankly, I am a solopreneur at this point with the One Rental at a Time brand. And I always chuckle when I'm talking to someone, usually casually, usually one-on-one, and they kind of chuckle like, hey, I haven't paid any taxes. in the last several years, right? Because basically, to your point, they're being very aggressive on their tax schedules, and they're basically taking all the top line revenue and making the bottom line look like zero or nearly zero. And at some point, if I don't like the person, I just let it go. But if I like the person, I do happen to bring up, to your point, you realize you're not bankable, right? Not only are you not bankable for a mortgage, you're not bankable for a credit card, you're not bankable for an auto loan, you're not bankable for anything, right? Because again, at the end of the day, solopreneur, LLC, whatever it is, if you're showing a tax return that shows zero or less than 10 grand or whatever, that's what people think you make, right? You're not bankable, right? Is that the goal? Is the goal to be non-bankable? And some people actually laugh at me because, this, but, Olivia and I picked up a house, a 7-figure house in Vegas a year or two ago. And people are like, why are you paying so much in taxes? I'm like, I got to be bankable, man. I want a conventional mortgage. I want 30-year fixed sub 5. And I'm not going to get that if I'm not bankable. So yes, there is a right way and a wrong way to do this. I think a lot of people get lost in the social media buzz and the sexiness of taking top line revenue, throwing expenses against it, and lowering it. Frankly, that's what the tax code is, right? The tax code is it's a game, it's a rules game, but that doesn't mean you have to be so aggressive. So makes a lot of sense that you're having those conversations.
Yeah, and the thing about it is everyone's different, and everyone's got different circumstances. Like most things, Mike, I'm just encouraging people to have the conversation. This guy, an example from this week, I get on the phone, and the realtor's been telling this client, who's literally like in the process of like, I'm going to list my house for sale, I'm going to buy this house moving forward. All of these actions towards this goal have happened. The conversation with the mortgage broker hasn't. And so again, talk to somebody, whether it's me or anybody else, about your scenario. Get these questions answered first. The mortgage financing part, in my opinion, is the first step. It's not the third step, the fourth step, find house, all that other stuff. Because in this specific scenario, again, reminder to people, in most cases, you're going to have that self-employment income for at least 2 years, because they're going to take a 2-year average. There's some cool caveats to it, where if you've been self-employed for 9 years, they can only look at the last year. You don't have to do a 2-year average. You've been in this profession for plus 5 years is what the guideline says. We can use just 1 year of tax returns. And so if you had a bad 23 and a great 24, you can just show 24 if it's 5+ years. But my point is, this person who neglected to have the conversation for so long was going to do all these things to change numbers on a business that was 1 year old. And I reminded him, if she makes $1 million or $2, it's not usable. This business like literally was established in 2024. And so again, being an advisor, I said, any future stuff that you're going to do, keep in mind 26 and forward, they're going to look at 24 and 25. They're going to take an average. So you might not necessarily want to write it down to zero. You might not want to pay the taxes and write nothing off and have that income be 38,000. Just know that it's going to be the average of 24 and 25 when you file in 26 and when you're looking at getting financing in 26. And I think, all of this advice, Mike, for me is all the same thing. Do the work, get the questions answered, know your numbers, know what you qualify for. It's the same for even a W-2 employee. You don't know. Like, what's my minimum payment on my student loans? Oh yeah, I do have a car lease that's $589 a month. And I'll have conversations and I'll say, listen, rough math as we're talking, I feel like I'm a pretty good numbers guy. You make $8,500 a month. Here's what the payments are. Your ratio with just your mortgage versus your debt is going to have to be under this. So we're talking a $3,800 payment based on your down payment. That's going to be about a $525,000 purchase, but don't hold me to it. If you're really serious about this, so give us your application, your supporting docs. We'll do a soft credit pull. It won't affect you. It costs nothing to you as the borrower. Only thing it costs really is my time and effort or the time and effort of somebody that you trust to give you the right numbers on this. And again, like most things, the output's only good as the input. And so if you're getting any answers from anybody with limited information going in on your side, the numbers are probably wrong at best, right? And so yeah, you're out there shopping for $750,000 houses. The max you'd qualify for is $550. Don't let your wife fall in love with that house, because you're going to disappoint her when rubber meets the road and you actually get yourself pre-approved.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the other thing that often happens around tax season, I've known this for decades now, is people typically celebrate getting tax refunds. Some people getting thousands and thousands of dollars. I am curious, is there an uptick in spring selling season with people using tax refunds as maybe part, if not all, of their down payment? Is that a real thing, or am I just overthinking it?
It's definitely a real thing. And you know what would be interesting? It would be interesting to have some data on what comprises a first-time home buyer's down payment.
Yeah,
now more
funds.
than ever, without seeing any data, I know that gift funds are they've got to be at a record high. You know, it's hard for this generation of first-time home buyers. Their parents are saying, you know, here's $20,000 in gift funds to help you buy. But you know, tax refunds, people are getting $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. I want to say two things about this to first-time home buyers. One, we try as best we can to remind people you don't need 20% down. Some people still think you need 20% down. There's 3% down conventional for first-time home buyers. There's 3.5% down FHA. If you've served our country and you're eligible for a VA loan, that one is technically 0% down, but there's still some closing costs. I've said this in different ways, and I got to be careful, Mike. As a mortgage broker, I've got access to all the products. I haven't necessarily found a down payment assistance program that I really, really like, because it always just has strings attached. The worst strings, quite honestly, when you're in a 7% interest rate environment, are any strings that's going to make it hard to refinance.
Yes.
The thing about owning a home and having a 7% interest rate is it's a fixed rate loan. It can't get worse, but it can get better. So I want you to be able to refinance into 599, 575. If you partake in a down payment assistance program that adds a second lien, you're making it that much harder on yourself to be able to refinance. There was so many, you know, I'm in California, Cal HFA, great department, great people. The down payment assistance, a lot of times, in my opinion, is something that long-term does not serve the borrower. So here's where this tax refund comes into play. You're buying something for $400,000. 3.5% of that is $14,000. Get yourself some seller credit. Structure a deal to where the prepaid taxes and insurance and escrow fees and lender fees and all that, you know, that might be $10,000 total. Credits can pay for that. Credits can't pay for your down payment. So the $14,000 is you, but maybe you've saved $6,500. Maybe your tax refund is $8,000. Maybe you've got a parent that's saying, I'm willing to give a gift for 10 grand. And so now all of a sudden, you know, you've got that 14,000 plus a buffer. I purposely made the numbers add up to 25 grand so that you have money in the bank. You're not wiring 14,000 to the closing table and having $57 left in your bank account. That's not a good play either. But yeah, do one of these 3.5 or 3% down loans, get yourself pre-approved for it. Make sure that you are comfortable with the monthly payment, but don't jump to, hey, where can I get down payment assistance? I heard somebody closed with only $400 out of pocket. Generally speaking, higher interest rate. There's a second that may or may not have a payment attached to it. It may be a silent second, but either way, it's going to be a hurdle to refinance. And so in 20 and 21, I remember specifically refinancing everyone, and everyone was throwing their own individual parties. I'm saving $300 a month. I'm saving $500 a month. The ones who I couldn't help, and it really, you know, hurt me, was people who had done down payment assistance in 18 and 19 and combined first and second didn't have enough equity yet to be able to pay those both off, which you have to do. You can't leave that second. Some of those programs will have a caveat where you can refinance it once. But anyhow, long-winded way of saying, make sure that you talk to somebody, you know the pros and cons. Generally speaking, your own down payment, a traditional FHA or conventional loan, is going to be the best bet.
Folks, at the end of the day, you're a small business owner, solopreneur like myself, or maybe a first-time home buyer getting some love from some tax refunds. You got to be able to work with a mortgage broker who's going to tell you the truth, even if it's the uncomfortable truth. Matt, where does somebody go to start the conversation with you?
Go to greatmortgagebroker.com. We're licensed in 48 states. When I quote unquote triage people that come to us, there could be a number of different outcomes. We're a great fit. We'd love to help. Let's get you pre-approved. Let's look at FHA versus conventional. We're a great fit. DSCR, Florida. We work with a lot of investors. Happy to help. It might be that, hey, listening to your scenario, you need a $22,000 HELOC. Find a local credit union. Or you need something that we're not experts at. I'll steer you in that direction. I had a funny text conversation yesterday where the client, I deal with the public, Mike, so you can imagine all kinds of people, some great people, some not so great. His text to me, the last text he sent was, "Congratulations, you fired yourself." And personally, I was like, great. My goal is always to best serve the client. It doesn't always mean that we're going to be a fit. In this specific scenario, there's a lot to this, and it's kind of funny story, but this client wanted to write their own rules. They wanted to do their own stuff. But with all those other challenges, they also were looking at a new build with a $15,000 credit. And I said, we don't have to discuss much further. That's your best bet.
Yeah,
that is your best bet. He was upset with his wife for talking to the builder's lender. Like, Matt's done this work for us. He's done that. And I said, listen, your best path forward is with the builder's lender. $15,000 credit. Enough said. My feelings aren't hurt. You're doing what's best for your family, as I would expect you to. And so that's what you're going to get if you go to greatmortgagebroker.com. If you're a great fit and we can help, I'd love to. If you're not, I'm going to steer you in the right direction.
Dude, you're amazing. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Come back each and every week. Greatmortgagebroker.com. Thank you so much.